in my dream, I'm going back to my home and live a long time in my home, and we are happy with my family. I saw my father in my dream. I saw my mother in my dream, who are family. I saw in my dream. One and a half that above of my father's death, I read my letter. I remember that above of my father said inside of Burma, in my home, my son, you are true. You must be fine. You are settled true. I reheard that, so I'm gonna cry my tear. One of my friends, he was died on my hand. The most of people, some of the soldiers, ABSDF soldiers, were died by malaria and dysentery and diarrhea because we have not enough medicine and also not enough food to survive in the jungle. We have only aim, we have only confidence, we have only way to fight, to win our achievement.
Burma, where the Buddha smiles above a monsoon of colors, and the days are spun from gold. But behind this veil of grace lies a separate reality: dictatorship, revolution, and a harshness I had yet to understand. As a photographer, I wanted to see more. December 1992, my first journey up the river bordering Burma with Thailand. Faces held in quiet dignity. The mountains, a velvet screen, upon which the changing light painted images of knowing silence. I would find out that in these same hills, young wounded soldiers were being carried from a war, carried further from the homes they longed to return to. I arrived in Manapla, headquarters of the ethnic Karen rebels. This was my first experience in a revolutionary area in Burma. I learned that there were different ethnic groups fighting the government for autonomy. Among them were the Karen, who had been fighting for nearly 50 years. Students joined them in armed resistance and formed the All Burma Student Democratic Front, or ABSDF. The Karen gave them shelter and taught them how to fight. January 1993. I headed further upriver to meet the translator who would help me with interviews. His name was Tint Aung, and he carried laughter in his eyes. In the evenings, he told me stories about his peaceful village near the sea, a happy family of 10 brothers and sisters broken by a cruel regime, his escape into the jungle, armed only with a slingshot he'd carved from bamboo. He had fire in his soul, and he searched hard for English words to reveal the flame. We became friends. I would spend the next 4 years with a small camera documenting Tint Aung's life as one of the thousands of young people who have fled Burma to fight for democracy.
That government is, we don't like, the whole people don't like. So, firstly, we need democracy government. human rights. We must be human rights. We must be democracy and other rights. First, we only request to the military government for the demonstration, but they cannot give us the democracy. Only they give the gun and bullet.
In 1988, Tint Aung was a university student. Holding a defiant fist in the air, he led other students through the streets of his hometown, shouting for democracy. In cities and towns throughout Burma, workers, teachers, monks, and children joined in protests calling for an end to 26 years of military rule. Government troops opened fire on the unarmed protesters. Some of Tint Aung's friends were among the estimated 8,000 people killed. Thousands of students fled to the Burmese border with Thailand, believing that international outrage at the carnage inside Burma would allow them to return home within months. Nearly 10 years later, more than 1,000 of them still live in the jungle. The government renamed itself the State Law and Order Restoration Council, better known as SLORC, and set out to punish the families of young people who had joined the protests. Like everyone at the border, Tint Aung was forced to cut all contact with his family. People in Burma are paralyzed with fear. Fear of the military intelligence, or MI, and their network of informers. Just writing a letter home could mean a family member may end up in jail. After Tint Aung left, his younger brother was interrogated by the MI and was forced to flee to the border. His older brother was arrested for political activities and tortured. His sisters have scattered. Tint Aung couldn't even go home to attend his father's funeral. He told me that his father had died of a broken heart.
I think the whole Burma, in the Burma, most of the family are packets or family. Separate. Group and group, one by one. Some reach inside of Burma, some reach in the borderline revolution, some reach go to the Thailand, some reach outside country. Separate. I hope that if we get the democracy, we can be correct. We can gather. We can organize our family in my home.
In the Karen area where Tint Aung lived, young boys were being trained as soldiers. I wanted to know what had happened in their lives that led them to join a revolutionary movement. March 1993. I met 13-year-old Jeanne Hallacy. He ran away from Rangoon with his family when they were warned that they were going to be arrested for supporting the democracy movement. After days of walking to the border, his only sister couldn't go on and had to be left behind with villagers. He never saw her again. When they reached the border area, his father joined the armed struggle. Then I met Chate. Chate can't remember his village in Shan State. He thinks he was about 9 years old when his house was shelled during a government offensive. He regained consciousness to find his dead parents in front of him. The SLORC took him back to their camp. After several years, he escaped to a village where he met a group of ABSDF soldiers. They took him in and nicknamed him Chate, little brother.
A lot of these people overseas and groups overseas say, oh, yes, it's good to oppose the slork by non-violent means. But I mean, ask yourself, what would you do? You know, I mean, put yourself in their position. Your father was taken as a porter and beaten to death. The soldiers raped your mother, 6 of them at once, and forced you to watch. You've ended up an orphan. Your sister's been sold into a brothel in Thailand by a slork officer. Your uncles and cousins are dead. Wouldn't you want to fight?
April 1994. I returned to the border to find Tint Aung. He wasn't a soldier anymore, but was still working for the student movement in their information department. His life had dramatically changed since I'd last seen him, and we set off into the jungle to see his new home.
Which one is your house?
Yeah, this